This conference will now be recorded.
Good. Hope everybody had a enlightening, uplifting Hanukkah, and now we go into a long winter, so to speak. Especially this year with 2 months of Adar, so we don't have Hanukkah until we don't have Purim, sorry, until I believe it comes out the end of March. It's actually when Purim comes out, pushing Pesach also out till about the end of April. And these are the seasons that we go through. Okay, so we're going to have another few weeks of brachos, and then I think we will transition. We'll see. I think we'll transition to Shabbos then at that point. Okay, good. Okay, so we are those who are following in this book of ours. So chapter 8 is the bracha on Birkat Mezonos, on cakes. I mean, that's the easy part, right? I'm sorry. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. So we know, what do we make Mezonos on?
Wheat products.
Wheat products. Give me some examples. Pie, cake, crackers, muffins. As long as they're not corn muffins, right? They have to be, with one of the 5 grains in them. Matzah ball. That's a good one, right? How about good old pasta, right? Lasagna and all of its different permutations. Pancakes, donuts. God, I'm getting hungry just going through this list. Okay, let's call it a night and have some cake. All right, guys? Okay. So Mizonos, right? We mentioned before the idea that when we are giving a compliment, the more specific the compliment is, the greater the compliment. Not that God needs our compliments, but the brachot are to give us an awareness of God. And therefore, the more specific we are, the greater our focus on appreciating what God has given us. Okay? The 5 species are what? The 5 grains, I should say, are what? Wheat, barley.
Figs.
No. The 5 grains. Wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye. Right? Good old Jewish rye bread, right? And rye. Okay? Okay. So all of those will need to have a bore mine mizonot. Okay. Now, if a person is eating raw wheat, then a person will make adama, not mizonot. Mizonot is when those grains have been transformed into a normally edible food. We normally are not eating raw wheat. We're not eating raw flour. One decides to eat raw flour, one would make a shahakol on that. Okay. So when one, on the bottom of page 231, when one bakes a dough from the flour of any of those 5 grains, then that grain is reaching, as it says here, its full potential. This is called pas, right? Or lechem, or pas haba b'kisnin. Okay. So let's go through. The simple is when it's being made into bread. And it's very simple. What do we do? What bracha do we make on that? Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, right? That is a very special status, right? We wash our hands, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and we have birkat hamazon afterwards. Okay. In order to qualify as bread, he gives here three criteria. It must be from one of the 5 species, right? If I'm making myself, I don't make anything myself. I'm not much of a cook. But if My wife is making, right, zucchini, all these different things like that. It depends what it is. Or we mentioned corn muffins, right? It has to be the basic ingredient must be one of the 5 species of grain. Okay. It must be eaten with the main dish of a meal. Okay. Bread in halacha is normally eaten as a meal. And it must be of a solid dough baked in an oven. Okay. Let's say it's made in oil or in water. Which things are typically made in water? I think bagels. I think real bagels are made like that.
Oh, really?
No? Maybe I'm not. What do I know? Right? Okay. So 5 grains, main meal item, and baked. Then we have cake, which is pas haba bikisnin. Okay. Breads which are normally eaten as a snack. Okay. Not eaten as part of a main meal. Just one second. Not eaten as part of a normal main meal. So there are a bunch of definitions of this pas haba b'kisnin, literally bread that comes in pockets almost. Let's hear. Example number 1 is, or some say that is pie. Okay? That is these pockets of dough that are filled with fruits or nuts, right? Apple or cherry pie, right? Examples. One does not eat a meal out of that. We might want to, but we don't, right? And therefore, right, even though a person might be using bread dough, right? On pies, we make a Mezonos. Okay?
Rabbi, would you still do, would breadsticks, would that be considered though?
Okay, so that's going to be interesting, right? Breadsticks, right? Which are baked, right? So let's see what he says over here. We have a nice thing over here, right? We don't make a meal out of breadsticks.
But what if you
right?
chose to make a meal?
Breadsticks, right? Without kavias suuda, without establishing it as a meal, right? So then you would make mezonos, right? If you're establishing that as your meal, meaning if that is your bread for the meal, right? No one makes a meal out of breadsticks, but if that is taking the place of the bread at a meal, so I'm being koveya suuda and I'm dipping that into my hummus and I'm melting cheese on that and I'm having that along with my main dish. So then if you're koveya suuda, that's going to be the key. Koveya means establishing, suuda we know means meal. Am I establishing my meal on that or not? If I'm being koveya suuda, then that will become a hamotzi. I make hamotzi on that. Okay?
So like, for example, like if my wife made, a bunch of breadsticks and everything like that, and it's quite a bit, but then there's nothing else. But it's just, we're just
Are you
eating
sitting down
breadsticks.
to your meal and having your breadsticks?
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
then it's hamotzi.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's koveya suuda. If you're grabbing a breadstick, right, something to munch on, that's a snack. That would be mizonos. Now, it has to be a significant amount of filling. Sometimes I think it's Rosh Hashanah this year. I think Natalie baked bread, made challah with apple. Right? It wasn't apple pie. It was challah with little pieces of apple in it. Right? Absolutely delicious. That was not apple pie. That was not pat hababik kisnin. That was apple flavored bread. The same way some people put in chocolate chips. Many people put in raisins. right? That is challah. That's absolute bread, okay? And therefore, on that clearly, one would make a mezonos. One would make hamotzi on that. Yeah. Okay. Well, if you're having a meat pie, fish pie, cheese pie, vegetable pie, even though there are arguments can be made to that you should make hamotzi on that, but that we will make mezonos on it. Okay. Examples: pastries, right? Franks and blanks, right? The little frankfurters. That's a snack. That's Mezonos. Potato knish, right? Mezonos. How about pizza? Calzone, right? Okay. So that's a question, right? That could very well be considered a meal, right? Something for families. I'm sorry?
Doesn't it depend on the amount?
Yes, right? Nowadays, pizza is usually eaten as a mainstay of the meal, right? Right? It used to be a snack. There weren't sit-down pizza shops, right? So therefore, the accepted psak was a single slice of pizza is only mizonos, right? But people eat pizza as a meal without a side dish. It's produced to be a meal, not a snack, right? So if a person eats a slice of pizza or a calzone as a meal, right, one should make hamotzi and bench on it, is what he comes out over here. Okay.
That's even if he has one slice.
If that's your meal, if I'm sitting down, right, I'm going into the pizza place, and I'm sitting down and having a calzone as my meal, I should make hamotzi on that, and I should bench on that. If I'm grabbing a slice of pizza and I'm going into the car, right, and having that as a snack on the way, then the one slice one could justify making Mezonos on that. I'm sitting down at home and pizza is my dinner, then one would wash on that. Yeah. A second definition on page 236 is cake. Okay. Bread kneaded with any liquid other than water, eggs, honey, fruit juices, right, which add a significant amount, right, or a lot of spice or flavoring, sugar or cocoa, right? So then that's not something that I would normally have as bread. Then that also is a second situation that we would call pata babakisnin, and that would then be mezonos. He gives examples here: marble cake, cupcakes, right? And this would not be hamotzi. Okay. But if it does not completely change the taste of the bread, honey challah, right? So that's challah with a honey flavor as opposed to a cake. There one would need to make hamotzi. Okay? Cake, croissant, pizza, if the pizza is made with pure apple juice, right, and not eaten as a meal, so then that would, how's pizza normally made? You make your own dough?
I get Trader Joe's. They're carved up. I don't.
Okay, and that's probably made with water and stuff, I imagine. It's regular dough. Yeah, yeah. Okay, the third definition of pata babakisnin is crackers. Dry, thin, brittle bread eaten as a snack, not as a meal. Okay, and he says, whereas the previous two types, the issue was their taste, now the issue is its form. It's made of flour, it's made of water, there are no additives, right? But it's not going to be bread. Hard pretzel, biscuit, a kichel, right? Kichel. As a kid, I had to find a kichel. A kichel. A breadstick, right? Breadsticks fit in this category since they too are hard, brittle, and usually eaten as a snack. However, if one eats any of these types of crackers with a meal, right, one may have to treat right at them as bread. We'll see. If we touch upon that, we'll see it later on also. Yes.
Really quick, can we go back to the honey
Yes.
challah?
Yes.
On page 237, it says if enough honey is added to radically alter the taste of the challah, one recites mezono. So
If it's a honey cake.
okay.
If it's a honey cake.
All right.
Right?
Yep.
In other words, if this tastes like a honey cake and not, sometimes you have these bakeries which make like these challahs that really are like cake. With all this cinnamon and stuff like that. But even so, if one is treating that as their bread, I'm making if that's my meal, then I'm making hamotzi, so then I'm being koveya seuda on that. But I would say honey challah and honey cake. Okay, that's where we want to draw the difference. Now, page 239, matzahs. One may therefore question our custom reciting hamotzi on matzah. What are they? Dry, thin, and brittle. Sephardic Jews actually say mezonos on matzah, except on Pesach when matzah is the bread of that festival. Ashkenazic Jews treat matzah as regular bread and recite hamotzi. Right? That is because our normal custom is to eat matzahs in the place of bread. Right? It's always good, at least for Ashkenazic Jews, to have a box of matzah around. Right? You run into a problem on Shabbos, you need lechem mishnah, right? You just have a whole box full of lechem mishnah over there. You pull out a couple of matzahs, or you have a loaf and you need one more, you pull out a matzah, and you are good to go. Right? In addition, poskim question whether matzah are dry and brittle enough to be pasa babakisnin. Matzah crackers made to be eaten as crackers will be mezonos. Okay. Egg matzahs are the equivalent of those cakes mentioned in section 2 and would only be a mezonos. Okay. Toast. Toast is regular bread, right? And therefore, it was made as bread, and by toasting it, you're not going to demote it from its bread status. Interesting. The question that we raised as to the proper bracha for melba toast, right, which is the bread which was baked for the purpose of producing toast. The commonly accepted custom is to say hamotzi on that. Okay.
You mentioned if a liquid other than water is added, it might.
So and that seriously alters the taste, that it's not like bread, so then it might demote it to mezonos. But he'll talk about this, that let's say on the airplane, the kosher meals comes with what was thought to be a great innovation, because it's hard to get up on the airplane and go wash. You have to wait for the bathroom. You have to wash in there. It's a very little sink. The cups there are annoying. Then you've got to walk out. You can't make a bracha in the bathroom. You got to walk out with your paper towel, right? People think you're walking out with your toilet paper. It's awkward. So someone had the brilliant idea. Hey, let's make Mezonos rolls. Looks like bread, tastes like bread, acts like bread, but will use fruit juice instead of water. That does not work. That does not work. Why? Because it hasn't altered the taste. I'm not eating cake. I'm eating bread. And I'm eating that as my meal. Right? Perhaps if you want to have your meal, then afterwards have that as a snack, then maybe that could be justified as a mezonos. But when you're having that as part of your meal, right, and you're slicing in half and putting on some cream cheese or some butter or margarine, right, That is bona fide bread meal. Okay. Page 244, eating cake as a meal. Okay. So let's say I'm eating cake, right? And that's going to be my meal, right? Like you asked about the breadsticks. Well, let's say I'm having a loaf of honey cake as my meal. I might put some jam on top, whatever I'm doing with it, but I'm eating that as my meal, right? Then it will be treated as bread. And in that case, the person would, if you're making a meal out of cake, not recommended for diet, not recommended for health, but if you want to sit down and have a box of Mezonos as dinner, right? So you would wash, make Hamotzi, bench, and maybe the next morning you have to do Hagomel after the blessing for being in danger and being saved from a danger afterwards, right? So that would be Birkas Hamazon. Okay, but that's not the typical way that we do it. Okay, 245. How much would make that Kviat Suda, establishing that as my Suda? Okay, typically we have a halachic consensus defines how much that is. You eat a small amount of cake, right? Then even if that's going to be my dinner, right? Let's say I have a big lunch. I don't really have a dinner. So I'm going to have a slice of cake. And that's going to be my dinner. I'm not sitting down, tucking my napkin in over here to I'm going to have a piece of cake, and that's what I'm going to eat that night. So that's, so to speak, my dinner. That will not be hamotzi, right? Okay. So it's got to be that you're eating that as an amount for a meal. Okay. How much is that is going to be? Let's see his. Right? And other things eaten along with that, other ingredients, their air pockets, cake eaten along with that, right? Okay, so how much is that going to be? So look on page 250, right? Ideally, one should avoid eating cake in the volume of 4 eggs, right? How much is that in terms of size, in terms of ounces? I'm not even sure, my friend, to be honest with you. How do you determine that?
Four eggs.
The truth is, if you give me ounces, it wouldn't help either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's look at number 2. One who eats an amount of cake equal to the amount of bread a person of his type, age, weight would eat for dinner. There's nothing to eat but bread. That would be kviat seuda. Okay, that we can go with. Right? If you were having just bread, that's your meal, just bread. How many slices would that be? I would say 3-4 slices of bread, right? Sorry?
Yeah, I was gonna say 4.
Yeah, about 4 slices of bread. Okay, so if you're having cake equal to those 4 slices of bread, that would be kviat su'uda. Okay?
The four eggs, it says approximately 3/4 cup plus 1 teaspoon volume.
Tablespoon.
Tablespoon.
Yeah. I also don't know what that is. You know what I'm saying? But I'm going to go with that we said before.
It's almost a cup's worth.
Yeah.
3/4. Yeah, 3/4 almost.
Plus a tablespoon, so it's almost a cup.
Yeah. So how much does a cup of flour or baked into bread? Is that what it's saying over there? Let's just go with that. Let's just go with, let's say, 4, right, equal to 4 slices of bread. Okay, here on 253, he discusses the Mezonos bread issue, right? The Mezonos bread itself on 253a, right, is not filled with fruit as a pie, not eaten thin and brittle as a cracker. The only claim is apple juice instead of water is what it is kneaded with, right? But that's when the taste of the fruit juice is clearly distinguishable, right? Mezonos bread has no noticeable taste of apple juice, right? Right? If it tasted like apple cake, we wouldn't be eating it, okay? And therefore, right, it is, right, as he says over here in 254, it's a bit self-contradictory, okay? Okay, Frank's falafel sandwiches, right? That's a bread. That's a meal. You eat. You're treating that as bread. You would need to make hamotzi. Okay, Mezonos chalas airline meals, right? These are problematic, right? 256. The practice is right. Marked Mezonos. The practice is misleading and improper, right? Although the bun itself may only require a Mezonos, like I said before, the fact that the bun is eaten with other foods as a meal gives it certainly kavias seuda. Okay? One may eat the meal, as I said before, without the bun, make a bracha charona, and eat the bun as a snack later during the course of the flight. Right? That one could do if you're eating it as a snack. Okay, cakes, we drank kreplach. Okay. Yeah, take a look in 260. Donuts are made of solid dough cooked in water or oil, right? We'll have the same question as Hamotzi or Mezonos, right? But if they're done in oil and they absorb a strong taste of the oil, as in our sufganiot, right? Then that would require a Mezonos. Bagels are made of a solid dough, cooked in water, and then baked in an oven. Therefore, they are considered ordinary bread and require hamotzi. Okay? Now, if you're buying the bagels like the Sarah Lee or the Thomas's bagels, that I think is just flat out bread, right? Baked in the shape of a bagel, right? With a hole in the middle, right? It's real bagels, and you can taste the difference that are first cooked in water and then are baked. But even those, that's going to be hamotzi that you're making on it.
What is kreplach?
Kreplach. The RC didn't ask you that question?
No,
They didn't ask you to define kreplach.
I guess they left it out.
Kreplach are it's like a noodle filled with meat inside. A dumpling.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Right. You know, I think in Chinese restaurants, right, they'll have that.
the dumpling.
They call them dumplings. Yeah. Yeah. That's basically on what page do they have kreplach?
It was at the bottom of page 261.
Let me see what they say about kreplach.
Right, above the donuts.
Mm-hmm. A thick dough cooked in water or oil, which has a bread form, right? Yeah, kreplach donuts. Yeah. So that is something, right, that we'll have to get to. That's in a soup over there, right? So then, right, if I have kreplach typically in a soup, so I'm not being koveya seuda on that.
Right.
I'm not treating that as the bread of the meal, right? So then that would typically require a mezonos. How about like a bread kugel?
Wouldn't that probably be in the same line as cake? Mezonos.
Yeah, let's take a look. Right, challah kugel, page 265. Challah or bread kugel is commonly made of challah, which was soaked in water, crushed into little pieces. The resulting mixture no longer resembles challah. In addition, the kugel is mixed with eggs and other ingredients, which give it a taste other than bread. As a result, when the kugel is rebaked, it resembles a cake more than a bread, and its bracha is mezonos. Okay, French toast. Right? So French toast is not going to lose it. That is bread. That looks like bread, right? Yeah, dipped in egg, some oil, right? And therefore that will clearly be, right, Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon. Guys familiar with matzah brai? Matzah brai is one of the classic Pesach foods. Page 266. Yes. Matzah brai is made from small pieces of matzah soaked in egg, fried in oil. Questionable situation. The pieces are smaller than a kazayas, right? And they are fried and not boiled. One cannot recite the Mezonos with certainty. Therefore, the best thing to do would be make a hamotzi on a piece of bread, Pesach time, and a piece of matzah beforehand. However, if they are no longer recognizable as matzahs, the bracha is Mezonos. So there are two styles of matzah brai. Some have matzah brai that you have a lot and it becomes like a cake almost, right? Nice, flat, smooth. Or you just have, like you keep flipping it, you just have these pieces of matzah sticking out at all these different angles, right? I think it will depend, is it looking like matzah or is it looking like a cake?
So that's matzah brai, right?
Yeah. Let me see that one. Yeah. So that's exactly. This is the best ever matzah brai. Okay. But that's the one that looks like all these different pieces, right? So that's looking very much like matzah, right? That's looking very much like matzah, right? So there you would need to make hamotzi. But let's say I would have a lot of that and I make it nice and flat and I keep flipping it over. So basically I have a nice matzah patty is how it's going to come out looking. That's going to be looking like, it's not looking like matzah anymore. It's looking like a matzah cake or like a bread. To me, that'd be more like the bread kugel, the bread pudding, right? And then that would be a mezonos. Right? Yeah. Well.
So like that would be Mezonos if it was.
Let me see
if
that.
It was made like that.
Yeah. Okay. You guys can see that. Right? That looks like a nice flat thing. Where is it? Can I slide the other one or I won't find it?
Go up, I think.
I don't want to mess with your phone. Sorry.
You want me to show another one? Here. Back. Go back.
You got him?
Yeah. There it is.
Thanks. Mm-hmm. That looks like matzah. How clearly it's coming out over there.
That looks yummy.
That looks like matzah. It looks very.
I know.
That looks like matzah. Okay, thank you. Okay. Now, how about grains? Right? Until now, we've been transforming these grains into new items. Okay? Now, 268. Okay? All grains that are vegetative foods, right? Then we just make a bore pri ha'adama. Okay? Let's see the examples he's going to give over here. Right? Raw kernels. Right? One would make ha'adama. Right, raw barley, he said that would be shahako because that's really not eaten like that. Yeah. Whereas the raw other grains are considered more edible, raw barley is less edible. Okay. So let's say you've got yourself your oatmeal. Okay. Right? What do you make on oatmeal? Mezonos. Right? That's over here on page 272. Processed grains 2A, right? Cooked barley soup, mezonos. Hot cereals, oatmeal, wheatina, farina, mezonos. Dry cereals, whole kernel dry cereals, puffed wheat, right? Super golden crisp, right? So now, interesting. The kernels are milled and some of the endosperm is presumably removed. Nevertheless, since they are toasted or puffed and not cooked, right, they cannot be classified as masa kedera, right? And therefore, some say either adama or mezonos, right? In that case, probably you make your hadama. Okay.
So, Kadiya soda only applies to when they actually look like bread.
Not necessarily. Cake, right? If I'm being koveya my suda, I'm turning that into my meal, right? But even
So
though
this
cereal
guy
might be
can,
my breakfast meal, but when we say a meal, we're talking about,
I mean, some people treat that as breakfast.
yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. We're not going to view a bowl of cereal, even though that might be my breakfast. When we're talking about a meal, we're talking about sitting down and having. It's hard for me. It's hard for me to clearly delineate. But no one is washing and making hamotzi on their cereal. Yeah, yeah. That's yeah. Rice is one of the and the bracha charona on all the grains. If you're not making hamotzi, you're making mezonos. The bracha charona is ala michya. That's simple, right? That's our general rule. If you're making mezonos before, bracha charona is ala michya. Making one of the other brachas before, the bracha afterwards is barei nefashos. The exception to that is rice. Rice, we make the bracha. It's not one of the 5 grains, right? Nevertheless, we make the bracha of mezonos on it, since that is a satiating staple food, and therefore it is mezonos. But since it's not of the 5 grains, therefore the bracha afterwards is going to be borei nefashot. Okay, we'll call it over here. Like I said, this is not the easy stuff, and it's hard to draw the line with many of these things. Quite honestly, yeah.
And this is why this is such a good book to have.
Yes, yeah. This is a good book to have because you have a good glossary in the back, and you can go to that. All right.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Good night. Good night.
Nice.
Yes. All right now.
Good night.